What would you do if the person who is supposed to be your partner makes you feel completely alone, even on a day meant to celebrate you? In today's story, one woman's choice on Mother's Day becomes a masterclass in how to handle it. It all started on Mother's Day morning. I woke up early, not to the smell of breakfast in bed, but to my own foresight. I went ahead and ordered myself a coffee so my husband, Mark, could take our son to pick it up and surprise me. It's a common thing for parents to have to help and facilitate the day. After all, our kids are 6 and under. You can't exactly expect toddlers to be solely responsible for celebrating their parents. When they returned from the coffee run, they also went to the grocery store and thoughtfully picked out my favorite breakfast. Mark started making the meal, but then he asked me to make the other half. No problem, I thought. I'm a team player. He even acknowledged what he was doing, saying out loud that he was asking me to do the work while he still got the credit for the wonderful experience in our kids' memories. It genuinely was no problem, until it was. He announced he was going upstairs to go to the bathroom. Mark thought he was just stealing a moment of rest, completely unaware that this selfish act was the final crack in a dam that was about to break. 45 minutes later, I walked upstairs to check on him, and there he was, fast asleep in our bed. He slept the entire afternoon. Later that day, I was standing in front of the sink, tackling an absolute mountain of dishes, my third load for the day, but that's a story for another time. Mark came into the kitchen and asked me to make a grocery list. I tried to keep my tone light and playful. Could you please make the list? I'm kind of in the middle of this, I asked, even invoking Mother's Day as a gentle nudge. I really didn't want to stop what I was doing to look inside the refrigerator he was already standing directly in front of, just to tell him what we needed for dinner. He knows the ingredients. He could have easily looked himself, but he insisted that I had to help him. As so many others have pointed out, the correct response in that moment would have been, sure, here, you finish the dishes while I make the list. It's a perfect way to feed their strategic incompetence right back to them, but I didn't do that. I felt my frustration bubble up, so I took a deep breath, meticulously washed and dried my hands, walked over to the fridge he was guarding, and began listing off the items we needed. Mark immediately sensed my frustration and called me on it. I explained, calmly, that I was just hoping he could make the list himself this one time, since my hands were literally full of soap and water. I told him that when I make a grocery list, I just look at what we have and write down what we don't, and I couldn't understand why he needed my help to perform such a basic task. He didn't listen. He started talking over me, raising his voice to say that if I had a problem making a list with him, I should have just said so. I did. I told him. I did communicate that, but he just doubled down, telling me that I needed to learn some patience. At that point, a cold, serene calm washed over me. I smiled, a tight, thin smile that didn't reach my eyes, and said, Happy Father's Day. It was, quite literally, the nicest thing I could think to say in that moment. That single sentence set him off completely. He went on a tirade, refused to get the ingredients for the dinner we were supposed to cook together, and then left. He returned later, having bought dinner only for himself and our kids, and then gave me the silent treatment for the rest of the evening. This move revealed Mark's greatest fatal flaw, his punitive immaturity. Unable to win the argument with reason, he resorted to the tactics of a child, trying to punish me into submission. He told me I went too far. This incident wasn't an isolated event, as many have correctly guessed. It was just representative of every other day, but magnified by the fact that he chose Mother's Day to be particularly awful. I started to question myself. I'm neurodivergent, and sometimes I have trouble picking up on social cues or knowing if I've done something wrong without realizing it. I felt like maybe I was the asshole for making such a petty comment. Many people online were quick to say my husband is abusive, that I'm in danger, and that my children are already being traumatized. They urged me to think about safety and work towards an escape, not worry about my abuser's feelings. I know they think I can't leave right now, but that I should at least start working towards it. The thing is, they're right, and I've tried. There's a reason I felt so trapped. Last year, I tried to leave him. His behavior had become erratic, and I was starting to feel unsafe. It culminated in a complete mental breakdown that sent me to the emergency room, where I told the staff everything. I told them about the abuse, which they noted in detail in my file. They asked about my escape plan, and I told them I had it covered, answering all their questions. I had been planning it for a year, They had to document the reported abuse, they said. I was terrified he would find out, so I explicitly asked them to check my chart and make sure it wasn't tied to his account in any way. They looked at it right in front of me and made sure he wasn't on my emergency contacts or attached to my chart. But guess who got an email with my chart notes, detailing his abuse and my entire exit plan? Before I even got home, I had to backtrack, cool things down, and start over with a new plan that I kept entirely to myself. But the damage was done. He knew I had saved up money to leave, and most of those savings were mysteriously depleted within a couple of months. I eventually left anyway with our kids, but with far less money. It didn't take long for me to realize I couldn't sustain the cost of my old bills, which were still in my name, and all the new bills, on top of legal fees and the general cost of starting over. My leaving caused him to spiral and go back to therapy. Soon, we started visiting each other in public, outdoor places, mostly because I didn't want to leave our kids alone with him. He has always been able to wear me down and talk me out of a divorce, and this time was no different. I felt so ashamed, like a complete failure for going back, even though I knew I wasn't an anomaly, and surprisingly, he never actually changed. But after this Mother's Day, something in me snapped. This was more than just a change in tactics. It was a fundamental shift in the power dynamic of our entire relationship. From this moment on, things would never be the same. Since that Sunday, I have not lifted a single finger for the man-child I live with, unless it directly impacts our kids. Every time he requests my help or asks me to do something he can very well do himself, I use my absolute sweetest voice, let him know he doesn't need my help, and tell him I believe in his ability to complete the task himself. Then I smile and walk away. The third time I did this, he said I was making him uneasy. I couldn't help it. I laughed out loud. That, he announced, made him feel more uneasy. I know it wasn't kind, but I calmly looked him in the eye and told him, "You are a pathetic human." I said, "I'm sorry it has to be me, but someone in your life needs to tell you to grow the fuck up." I told him that I care about him and love him, but I will not tolerate being treated with disrespect for even one more day. His response? He called me abusive. The audacity was breathtaking. I've been using the gray rock method to avoid his attempts to rope me back into arguments. I've calmly listened to him gush about his love for our family and how much he appreciates me. He says he loves me, but all I hear in my head is his voice screaming, "Fucking bitch" at me from arguments past. It all sounds so disingenuous. I told him his words mean nothing while his behavior remains the same. It's like saying waffles have legs. It sounds so unbelievable that unless I see it with my own eyes, I'm not buying it. I told him that whether we stay together or not, we both need to go back to therapy, separately and as a couple. I said he needed to take concrete steps, today, to treat his mental health. He agreed, but I've seen no evidence of walking waffles yet. I am surprised at my own ability to completely refuse to do anything he can do himself. I'm even more surprised that he's actually doing the tasks. I've tried this before, but he always managed to bully me into doing the task for him. Not this time. He keeps complaining about his results in ways that are so juvenile and manipulative, always trying to leave the impression that if I had just done it, it would have been done correctly. I just smile and tell him he did a good job, that it sounds like he just needs more practice, and that eventually, it will become second nature. I can feel him trying to make me miserable, but for now, it's just rolling right off me. I've been isolated for so long that my friendships no longer exist. I have very little family, and none nearby. I have no friends. I work virtually and rarely interact with other adults. That's the beauty of the internet, isn't it? After years of gaslighting, it can feel impossible to trust your own judgment. The support and validation I've received has meant the world. This story is a stark reminder that you cannot fix someone who refuses to see their own flaws, and that reclaiming your self-respect often begins with a small, consistent act of refusing to enable their behavior. When you're in a situation that feels impossible, what's the first small step you can take to reclaim your power?